So again, welcome. My name is Julie. I am a peer support coordinator for Spinal Cord Injury Ontario in the region. My co-host for this session is Jaspreet, who is also a peer support coordinator as well as a service navigation coordinator in Toronto. So just a quick few rules of engagement before we start. Like I said, we will be recording this session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them throughout the presentation. We will be monitoring the chat box, so you can also put them in there. We will send out an email about a week or two after the session with a link to the recording, as well as any of the links that we talk about throughout the session, so you don't have to worry about trying to write them down. Just feel free to listen and ask questions and share your travel hacks too, if you have some. So we've got lots of great travel information to share. We're joined by two of our London peer mentors, Jackie and Paul, as well as Leander, who is a development coordinator for Spinal Cord Injury Ontario. So I will let Jackie take it from here to share her tips when traveling.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to everyone. I hope you're excited about travel, because I have to admit that since COVID, have some trepidations. And some of my information might be a bit on the old side, so I'll just touch on a few things. There are a lot of websites where you can get a glimpse of what other people are doing, hints on ways they've dealt with stuff, and it's always entertaining. One of them is Curb Free with Corey Lee, and you have to bear in mind when you're watching Corey that he makes travel his life's work. He probably travels 8 months out of the year, and he travels with his mom and some kind of assistant and people who hold cameras for him and everything. So it's a bit more glamorous than you or I would be traveling, trying to schlep our bag all by yourself or with a friend. So but it is cool. He shows you a lot of places where he's been, and all you have to, and same with The World is Accessible is also an excellent website to get other people's viewpoints on places they've gone. Some of the things that I learned because I've traveled by myself and with other people, and one of the main things is when you're planning out where you're going to stay at a hotel, don't just count on using third-party booking sites like things like Kayak and those kind of things. Sure, they give you discounted fees, and it's not a bad place to look to get some ideas and figure out what the fee might be and maybe help you negotiate a decent fee. But your best bet is to call the actual desk of the hotel and talk to the people there and find out what their wheelchair room really has and doesn't have, and what their accessibility really is, because the people on the third-party sites will promise you just about anything and say that it's something's accessible or that it has a roll-in shower, even if it doesn't. And when you get there, because you don't have a relationship with the hotel itself, they're not that they don't have to guarantee anything because you booked through another site. So even if you did book through them, you still need to talk to the hotel, talk to the people at the front desk on the phone, and then always call. Maybe you did this a month ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Call the day before to double check that your plans are still going to work. And I would keep that front desk number in your phone or in a notebook or something, because when you're lying in the bed of the hotel or you're in the bathroom and you're having difficulties, like say you need emergency or you need some kind of assistance or whatever you need, the phone that's the landline phone is never where you are. And if you're like me, once you're in the bed and you can't reach it, then at least if you have your own phone, you have the number to the front desk. Because even if you, even in an emergency, if you had to look it up, you would get the 1-800 number or the booking number. But so I always keep a list of what the front desk's phone number is. Um, these are all just kind of like little things. Bring an extension cord with you always, because lots of times where you need to plug in your phone maybe isn't accessible. So at least you can get somebody to plug in the extension cord, and then you can always plug your phone in to charge it or whatever you need. Maybe even to make a light, like when you first come in there, survey the room and see where the light is. Um, I've a couple of times had to sleep with the light on because I couldn't turn it off to, if I turned it off to go to bed, then I couldn't see anything. And if I left it on, then I got in bed and I couldn't turn it off. So, sometimes it's little things are tricky sometimes, but if you always bring an extension cord and have the phone number of the front desk, if you make sure you pack your supplies and always bring a little bit of extra, because you never know if you're going to be delayed or, you might need stuff. When you're flying, and this may have changed but from my experience, when you're flying and you're booking with an airline, you can book, but then you need to talk to the medical desk. They may have a different name for it, but you need to talk to what they call the medical desk and explain to them what your needs are. And like if you're ambulatory, non-ambulatory, if you need an aisle chair, that type of thing, and be prepared to give the weights and measurements of your wheelchair or any other equipment that might need to go into the hold. So if some of those things, if you know them ahead of time before you make the phone call, you can kind of have it on hand. And then it's a little bit easier. That phone call goes a little bit easier. And like you said, always check in early. Don't leave it to the last minute. But I'm not sure. A lot of I found with travel to make it worth is the research. Research. It call ahead or, look it up. Have you look at it. Google Maps even sometimes will tell you if something is accessible or not accessible, even when somebody, doesn't have that information. So I don't, does anybody have any questions for me? I travel with the manual chair, so that viewpoint might be totally different for someone who travels with a power chair. I do know, though, you want to really know how your chair works, how to show somebody what to do, if you have a power chair, how to disengage the drive so that the chair can be pushed, what kind of things you want to take off your chair and bring into the plane with you to keep them safe, like your seat cushion and other accessories that might be could be damaged or disappear, because those things are valuable to us. I think that's kind of just basically what I have.
Well, that's actually a good segue, Jackie, to because I have C4-5 spinal cord injury, so I use a power chair, and I've just got a couple of pictures to show what I did this past time. I've traveled on planes quite a bit, and usually I take off my seat cushion, and that's kind of it, and then I keep my fingers crossed that my chair is going to come back working. Unfortunately, the last trip I was on, the power didn't work. So my joystick didn't work. And so somebody had to push me, through the airport in my power chair, which I don't know if you all know, but power chairs on their own are very heavy, let alone having a person in them as well. So this is what I did this last time. I just took bought a pool noodle, cut it. So I put like a quarter of it underneath the joystick. And Jaspreet, if you can go to the next picture, Jaspreet. And then cut another piece, poked a little hole, so that's where the joystick part will go. And then just laid it on top, and then just took some packing tape and just so I put that little piece of pull noodle at the top just so that it wouldn't automatically get flicked on the power. And then put the top on and just tape, 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 tape. Because sometimes I find even if I ask them to put it in manual, when I get it back, it'll still they know how to put it in drive and drive it with a joystick, which makes me really nervous. Anyway, so I found that worked. So that protected my joystick. That made them keep it in manual, and then they were just able to push it to bring it onto the plane. So then the next picture is just I use a low profile. I don't know if you can see, but it's a low profile Roho cushion. So my cushion that I sit on my wheelchair is a sort of a regular sized Roho. But for me, if I were to bring that onto the plane and put it on the seat of the plane, I'd be way too tall. So I have this low profile one that's like half the height of my seat cushion that I put on the plane seat. Because for me, I can't shift on my own. So it's a lot easier if I have a cushion. I find those plane seats really hard. So this works out well. So when I get transferred, I just have the seat cushion there, and then that's what I sit on for the rest of the plane ride. So it still makes me a little bit high, but definitely not too high that my normal Roho would. So those are just a couple of things that I've done as using a power chair when I travel. Happy to answer any questions. I know Paul and Leander both have information to share. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has. Not sure if anyone uses a power chair or manual chair, but happy to answer any more questions throughout the session if you have any. So Paul, I'll let you go ahead. And thank you, Jackie, for the information. That was
Oh,
great.
you're welcome.
You're muted, Paul.
Can you hear me now? I was joking with you. I don't have an actual power chair, but the lithium battery, do you have to take it on board the plane, like into the cabin?
So mine is a gel battery and no,
Okay.
they don't. So I make sure that they know that it can stay on. That's one of the questions that they ask on the sheet that I fill out
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
beginning, but I always make sure I tell them it is a
Yeah.
gel battery. You do not have to take it out. I do have a note from my vendor as well,
Gotcha.
just
Yeah.
in case if they
Indeed.
want to try, but
I know with some of the smaller units that a friend of mine has, he has the lithium, so he pulls it out into six on board. But I figured that yours would be bigger and a little bit different.
yeah,
So thank you for that. I wondered about that.
yeah.
Boy, Jackie, you really hit on it. Planning, planning, planning. I took my first trip about a year or so in. I've got let me just see. I can never remember what I've got. Hang on, I'll tell you. I have a lesion. I have transverse myelitis, is what gave me my and that's gave me my problem that I have right now, and that's a rare neuroimmune disease. And basically, the lesion on my spine opened up the myline and allowed fluid in, and it shut my weight at my shut me down from the waist down. So that is from T9 to conus, L1, L2, and it shut down my bowels, my bladder, my nerves, everything. But I've been very fortunate in the fact that they Parkwood, and that's where I met Julie, and that they taught me how to use my head to think through walking, so I'm able to be up on a walker and get around. So my experience through airports and things have been through walkers. However, that doesn't mean that it doesn't pose you difficulties if you don't research. The first trip I had, I was lucky enough. I'm involved with the Siegel Rare Neuroimmune Association in the States, and they invited me to Los Angeles to a symposium to speak. Well, this is my first trip, and I was going to go alone. And I said to my Brenda, my wife, because at that point I hadn't really done anything alone. And she says, "Well, should I come with you?" I said, "Nope, nope, nope. I got to figure I can do this on my own." So Garrett here decides he's going to do the whole thing on his own, right? So I obviously overpacked because I take my laptop, computer, walking sticks that I'd never used, and God knows what else with me, a backpack plus a suitcase that I dragged along. And I headed down on Robert Transport out of London, and it took. And I went at 2:40 in the morning. My flight was at 10:30. I could have taken the next one, so I ended up sitting for 7 hours in the airport. Research. Make sure that you know your times. Make sure you've allotted not just enough time, but not too much time. So I hadn't scouted that out. I also hadn't properly scouted out the airport, which is very important to do, to know where your washrooms are, to know where the security is, to know where the check-ins are, to know where the ramps, everything, and know where buses are, where they come to. And that really worked. I needed to know that when I got to Los Angeles. So when I got to the airport, I'm very fortunate because once I get to the plane, if I touch it, I can make my way on. But I mentioned to them that I had an accessibility issue and I needed a seat, and I'd spoken, and they hadn't provided me with that. In fact, by the time I got on the aircraft, none of the flight crew were particularly trained on what to do with anyone with an accessibility issue, because there was another gentleman in front of me that had his legs weren't working at all and he needed help from his chair, because you have to leave your equipment right before the door, obviously, to his seat, and they almost dropped him, for God's sakes. And they were going, well, you should have mentioned this. And he said, I talked to the medical people. So I don't know what the way around that, but you got to almost say, I can't go anywhere until there's personnel that can really help me here. So you got to self-advocate, because otherwise you can be in trouble. Make sure you specify. And at the gate, when they take you, and they're so lovely, they put you in a chair, they take the gate, make sure you say, will someone on the plane be able to assist me? They made me put my bag, and I can't really lift anything above my head, obviously, because I haven't got the strength or balance to do it. And they made me do that until a passenger came along and helped me with it. So it was really so. So anyway, we got to Los Angeles, which was fine, and we got to Los Angeles, and down there, I hadn't sussed out where you picked up your luggage. I hadn't sussed out a lot of different things about the airport. I didn't see where the bus was going to pick me up to take me to the Hilton. I hadn't researched properly, but for some reason, somebody was guiding me. I don't know if I survived it, and I got through it. So it really does give you the idea that you have to ask a lot of questions. You always have to advocate, and not necessarily depend on information from people around you, that when you ask them a question. I asked one of the security individuals at the Los Angeles LAX, where I have been to on a few occasions in my life, but it was different when you're not mobile. And I asked him where the luggage pickup was for this particular area. He says, "Oh, that's over in another terminal, 3 terminals away." So I started moseying on. I'm going to head to this other terminal. Well, this was not being informed again. When I came off the airplane, I said, "Where do you pick up the luggage?" She says, "I don't know. Ask out there." So that was, but I should have stopped at a desk and asked. So luckily, I saw somebody who'd been on my flight, and I went, "Where did you get those bags?" Because they had their bags, and they said over there. So I would have walked a long way. Bottom line is, I didn't research properly. Make sure you prepare your mobility equipment. Take a little maintenance kit or something with you, just in case. I know a wheel almost came off my walker, and I really didn't have any way of repairing it. The maintenance people at the hotel luckily helped me with it, and it wasn't because it's old. It's just one of these things, it's Murphy's Law. Carry the odd spare part. Um, Clearly label everything. Make sure everything's got your name on it, no matter what, because it can go out of your sight pretty quickly. Power devices, again, stored. Some people say that you transport ion batteries. We were talking about that. There might be restrictions to that. Maybe carry some other batteries as well for your equipment. Make sure you've got extra long, Jacqueline, as you say, extra long charging cables for your phone, because by God, you need your phone no matter where you are. We can fall down or have a problem pretty quickly. Medical supplies. I also have the great honor of having an ostomy, so I also have the bag that I have to look after, which on the plane I'm amazed it doesn't cause a problem, but sometimes I can have mishaps with it, and so you have to make sure you carry your extra supplies. Keep a list of your medications when you go through customs. Keep everything in a travel bag with you. All your medications, all your supplies that you require, keep it with you. Make sure they don't always want to see it, but make sure you got it. And also for yourself, if your bag goes missing, you're in big trouble without it. So medications, travel apps and resources, check them out. Make sure that you look at travel apps to see what's accessible. There's a thing called Wheel Map that you can get that gives you accessibility to finding wheelchair accessible locations. And Access Earth is another one that you can look at, which is really good to help you find out what's accessible, what's not. If you want to go to Egypt and go to the area of the Kings or something. Public restrooms, and make sure you know where the accessible ones are. Valley of the Kings, there we go. Make sure you check that out. changing places. We have to have bigger areas. Some countries, you go to airports, there are accessibility issues in the airport because they're not exactly what we always need, especially if you have a powered machine. You need the extra space. Sometimes it's as simple as the doors opening in rather than out, and that can cause a problem. So you really have to know that up front. Ride sharing, uh, you can do that with Uber or that sort of thing, but make sure that, again, that you have the proper equipment coming to pick you up and assist you. Accessible destinations, there are a few of them in the world. Washington, D.C. is one of them, but I wouldn't suggest you go there at the moment. Trump would probably have you arrested. At any rate, Amsterdam's good. Barcelona is a great spot. There's several places in Europe. Paris is a bit of a pain, but Paris is a pain even when you're walking. So, yeah, common sense. Use common sense. Be prepared. Do your research. And the first time you do something, it's always difficult. I've been away since. Still a pain in the ass, but it's easier.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. You
No,
remind me of one thing though, I just want to say quickly before we get to Leander. If you do have damage done to your chair or anything, you've got to go to the gate within, I was told within 3 hours. The
okay,
gate at the airport to show them what damage had been done so that they can fill out a report. You can't send them pictures after the fact. They have to be able to see it. So that's something I learned the hard way, which
yeah,
is not always convenient because, usually you've
yeah,
got arrived, that you've got
yeah,
arranged you up or that sort of thing. But
that's right.
it's sort of a bit of a lesson. Like I said, I learned the hard ways. If you have to
Good point.
go right away to the
Yeah, that's a really good point. That brought up something I forgot to mention. That's travel insurance. When you're getting that insurance, make sure it covers your mobility as well. Make sure it covers your chair, whatever your equipment is. Some people don't think about that. Not all policies offer that. So it's something you really should look into to make sure you're covered, just in case something happened to a chair like yours, which can be tricky to get repaired, right?
Yep, Jackie.
Just a quick, I happened to read something today about take pictures of take picture of your
Yeah,
wheelchair and all the
yeah,
working parts of it before you go on your trip and take it with you so
yeah.
that you can prove that it was in fully functional when you left.
Before. Good point.
And yeah, and then I forgot, apparently accessible bathrooms in places like a lot of European countries and stuff have a special key that you can only have if you have a disability, and you have
Right.
to go to like a city hall or someplace to get these
That's
keys.
That's correct. And you have to make sure you've got all that organized before you head there. Quite right. That's another big one. Otherwise, you have trouble.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
I'm going to duck out now because I have to go somewhere else. But
Okay.
Great to
thanks.
meet you, Jacqueline. See you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Bye now.
Bye.
That's great. Did you have your hand up? No. Okay.
Yes, I know. I was just gonna read Jackie's comments in the chat, but she did just say that. I think the other thought I had that while Paul was chatting were I believe medical supplies can go on for free. So they
Mhm.
just need to be in a separate bag.
Yeah.
You can't have your stuff in them.
Mhm.
And then what was the other thought I had? Oh goodness. Um, something. I'll think of it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Medical supplies are always free to go on, but you just have to make sure you don't lose track of them.
Yes.
Obviously.
Oh, that's what it
Uh,
was. So in regards to losing track, because that's always a possibility, try to keep some close to you so that
exactly.
if they
Yeah.
do get lost, you have them.
And toothpaste.
And then I don't travel enough, but as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, it would be good to even research because we keep saying the word research ahead of time where some of the medical supply locations might be if you did happen to
Yeah.
lose your supplies, because I can't pee without my
E-
catheters. And so
Exactly.
it would be
Yeah.
good to know where they are if my supply that I have in my handbag finishes before I get
Yeah.
my missing suitcase.
You're quite right about that. I was in Jamaica and I was like 3 catheters short. I hadn't packed quite enough. And we were very fortunate. There was a medical area close by who was able to help me.
Mhm.
Otherwise, could have been, yeah, you're right. Without those, we were in big trouble.
Yeah.
Big vendors are good to know too, if you need your chair fixed when you get to your.
Yeah,
Like, I think some of
absolutely.
what you mentioned, bringing tools and stuff, but yeah,
Well, just all I needed was like a little screwdriver and a small pair of pliers. I didn't mean bring a whole kit, you know.
yeah, yeah.
There's my tools. I got the whole tool belt on. I just brought it, and I know I'm mechanical because I've always been that way, but just a few things that even somebody can help you with,
Mhm.
you know, that's all. You
Yeah,
can get the small kits
definitely. Thank you.
and clearly label everything.
Okay, Leander.
All right.
So Jaspreet, don't start the photos yet. I was just going to mention a few things before we start going through those. So I've traveled to over 30 countries around the world. I tend to travel to destinations that are much farther, like Asia, Middle East, Africa. Um, and I'm a manual wheelchair user with a spinal cord injury. I have quadriplegia, but I do have the ability to stand. So a lot of the stuff we'll be mentioning is from my perspective as a manual wheelchair user. So first up, whenever I travel, I will often pay extra in order to ensure that I have fewer connections on a flight. That ensures that the journey is not as long, but more importantly, it reduces the probability of getting luggage lost. And your mobility device is essentially a piece of luggage. And that would be the quickest way to end your vacation would be if that were lost. So I don't mind paying a few $100s more to have fewer connections to get to a destination just to ensure or have a higher likelihood that everything I need is going to arrive with me. Um, Time of day that you fly can be important. If you're an individual who gets a lot of nerve pain and or maybe has only a certain amount of tolerance with respect to how much time you can spend in the chair before it starts becoming uncomfortable and causing pain, as well as most wheelchair users get a lot some swelling in their feet and legs more so than the average person does. This can also cause pain or make you feel uncomfortable. So, taking a flight to an overseas destination at midnight might not be the best thing to do uh, because if you've been up all day and then you're going to get on a 6 to 15 hour flight, over to Europe, over to Asia, you might be in a great deal of discomfort by the time that you get there. So taking into consideration what your tolerances are in terms of the swelling that you might get in your feet or the nerve pain that you might get or discomfort from spending in a normally long period of time in your mobility device is something you want to plan for. So if that's an issue, you would want to leave earlier or make sure that you're, horizontal for a good period of time before you leave on a nighttime flight. Otherwise, you could find that you're up in your chair for 24, 36 hours, which, for the best of us, can make you feel quite uncomfortable. As was mentioned by some of the other presenters, making sure all your essentials are in your carry-on luggage. Basically, my rule is if there is anything that I need for the trip that, if lost, would cause me to terminate my trip and have to immediately return, that's got to be on my carry-on. I can't afford to lose that. So, for most of us, that would be things like your medical supplies, if you catheterize, any products related to that, your prescriptions. Those things should always be on your carry-on because you really can't afford to lose them, and they would be challenging to replace in another country. And even if you did research the suppliers in the country that you're going to, in case you lost stuff, if you're arriving on a weekend, those suppliers are going to be closed, and you're going to be out of luck and have to check into a hospital just to empty your bladder. So always make sure the critical items that you absolutely need are in your carry-on luggage. Travel vaccines, that's something you also want to make sure you get. My mother went to my wedding in Cambodia and she didn't get a travel vaccine for Japanese encephalitis. She ended up getting bitten by a mosquito with Japanese encephalitis, and the ensuing flu symptoms triggered an autoimmune response called GBS or Guillain-Barré syndrome. She is now has paralysis that's the equivalent of someone with a spinal cord injury with paraplegia. So just not getting that travel vaccine has irrevocably altered her life. So, I would not skimp or avoid getting travel vaccines if they're recommended for a destination you're traveling to. It could utterly change your life if you don't, and that's something that you don't want to gamble with. Um, Another tip is often if you're going to a country where the native language is not English and not a language that you speak, I always make sure I get a business card from the hotel I'm staying at. And some of the hotels are very forward thinking, and one side of the business card will actually say, "Please take me here," in the native language of that country. So if you're taking a cab and you can't remember exactly where your hotel is, you just show them the business card, which will often be in English and the language that's native to that country. It's the quickest way to get directions or have someone return you to your hotel if for some reason you don't remember exactly where it is. You got lost walking around in the downtown area. So I always grab a business card from the hotel before leaving and going on excursions or exploring. Water, we have the luxury in Canada of having safe drinking water. Many countries, even developed countries, some in Europe don't have safe drinking water. So in those instances, you don't want to risk getting sick, getting traveler's diarrhea. So if you're in a country and you know that the water is not safe to drink, you want to make sure you're always using bottled water, even to brush your teeth, because it's not worth losing days of a vacation that might have cost you thousands of dollars. Um, and often hotels will provide you with free bottles of water in the hotel as well, but they're generally cheap anywhere you go. So I don't take any chances with respect to safe drinking water. I'll always make sure that I'm brushing my teeth. I'm careful in the shower that I'm not swallowing any water, because that could lead to something that could also disrupt your entire vacation. Travel adapters. So everyone brings their cell phone with them, but it's most important is for anyone who's got a power assist device that they're traveling with, or a power chair. You want to make sure that you have adapters for the plugs in the country you're going to, because bringing your charger for your power chair isn't going to be of great utility if the plug doesn't match what they use in that country. So you want to have some kind of multi-adapter. Often you can get these from your hotel for free. They're accustomed to tourists coming from all different parts of the world. And if you ask at the front desk, they'll often have adapters for you to use if you didn't bring your own travel adapter. And Jasper, you can start the first picture. So this is a typical washroom on an airplane, and it is very narrow. There's an endless variety of bathrooms on planes, depending on the airline, the year it was made, how they had it configured. So you never know what kind of bathroom you're going to encounter when you're flying somewhere. And it's not going to be consistent through the airline's entire fleet of planes. It's going to vary from aircraft to aircraft. As you can see in this case, it's super narrow. You can't do a lateral transfer. Most airlines have aisle chairs, which will permit you to get from your seat on the plane to the bathroom. However, you're not always guaranteed that the aisle chair will fit into the bathroom. So in this case, you would be brought up to the doorway, which is the view that we have right now. And if you can't do a 180-degree transfer from facing the toilet onto the toilet, then you're not going to be able to use that washroom. Most larger planes have multiple washrooms, and they're not always all the same. One would assume that the flight staff, if they're helping a wheelchair user get to the washroom in an aisle chair, you would think that they would bring you to the largest, most accessible washroom on the plane. That is not always the case. So you want to ask the flight attendant that's helping you to bring you to the largest washroom that they have if they come in different sizes. Next slide.
Leander, I'm just
Yep.
gonna, okay, once you're finished talking about the washrooms, there's just something in the chat box I want to read. But
Sure. So here's another airplane washroom. This one's obviously wider. So with this one, it's quite likely that the aisle chair would be able to fit into that bathroom adjacent to the toilet so that you could do a lateral transfer. But again, you can't make that assumption, and the airline won't be able to let you know in advance. So you have to be prepared that if you're not able to stand, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to use any of the washrooms on an aircraft. Um, Even some small planes have accessible washrooms. If you fly Porter, which uses small turboprops, even they have an aisle chair on board to help you with access to the washroom. But it's not a given that all airlines have aisle chairs on board. Virgin Airlines in Australia, at the time that I was there, I wanted to get a flight from Sydney to Ayers Rock, also known as Uluru, and it's a developed country. I was going to be flying Virgin Airlines, and they didn't have aisle chairs on board their plane. Um, uh, and then I had a recent experience where I was coming back from Cambodia, and on the short flight from China to Cambodia, that airline did not have aisle chairs for me to use the washroom on that 3 hour flight. So it's good to check with the airline in advance and make sure they have an aisle chair. But again, that doesn't guarantee you're going to have access to a bathroom. Julie?
okay, so I just want to make sure, so the comment and question, I guess, is we are hoping to travel from Toronto to Austria, and my son has not traveled since he became a paraplegic a few years ago. Transferring is difficult for him. He cannot stand at all. My question or concern is the washroom on the plane if the need arises. He had an indwelling catheter, so that's not an issue. He has a very strict bowel routine, but if he has an accident, we would need the washroom. What would that look like for us? So I'm not sure if Leander answered.
Um, So that's a common problem that a lot of people worry about. Obviously, you can mitigate catheterizing by putting a blanket over your lap and catheterizing in your seat. If that's the kind of scenario someone envisions, you want to make sure that you have not an aisle seat, but you're by the window and preferably sitting next to someone who's a spouse or family member. And then you throw a blanket over your lap and catheterize there. In terms of bowel routine, a lot of people follow a bowel routine, and therefore they know what days that they don't need to use the bathroom, and those are the days that you want to be flying. But bowel routines don't always stay 100% consistent, and accidents can happen. And unless you by yourself or with the assistance of someone you're with can transfer to the toilet on the airplane, you would be out of luck. So there's a likelihood that you could not be able to transfer the toilet. You'd remain in your seat on the plane, and you'd have an accident, and you'd have to deal with the cleanup and everything else after that. I mean, obviously you can wear like some sort of adult undergarment, to minimize the mess and inconvenience somewhat. But as an adult, no one wants to go through that experience, which most of us haven't had since our childhood. Um, so there aren't really a lot of options. It's just something that it's a possible accident that can happen, and there aren't a lot of ways to mitigate it. I've heard of people who have traveled with friends that are able to piggyback them to the bathroom, but again, depending on the layout of the bathroom, it could still be challenging.
Just to
So,
add, Leander, one thing that I've heard people talk about, and I'm having a brain fart right now as to what they're called, but they'll take that medication that, like if you have diarrhea or something, that'll stop that.
mhm.
I don't know why I can't think of what they're called. It's a pill. I don't know if
I mean,
anyone.
usually if you have travel diarrhea, you'll take an antibiotic to deal with it.
No,
But
but
just
it's
a general, but just a general to avoid a general accident. I
Yeah.
mean, You mean something that's like the opposite of a laxative?
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
called something. I don't know why I can't think of it right now, but
I know what you're talking, but I can't remember. Uh,
Imodium.
Imodium. Oh,
thank
there
you.
you are.
Yeah.
I think it's also to do with planning everything. So you really have to be involved in knowing what your routine is, as you said, Leander, before you fly on days where you don't have to. I don't have that problem anymore because I have the ostomy bag. I just go and dump the damn thing, which has solved a lot of problems for me. Um, but yes, you have to know your system, planning those days. I remember when I did fly, when I was still having to have bowel movements, it was difficult. And yes, wear an undergarment, but just try to make sure you plan. You've got your planning in source. And usually your bowels don't function well when you're in travel mode. Oftentimes people will become tightened up, if you will.
Jaspreet, you can go to the next photo. So this is just a graph that talks about temperature. You're traveling to a destination that you've never been before, or trying to plan what destination to go to. You always want to look at what the temperature is going to be at the time that you're there, and you also want to look at the precipitation. We're used to 4 climates in Canada, but if you're going to somewhere anywhere from Australia to Southeast Asia, they might only have 2 seasons a year, and one of those is a rainy season. I had a trip where I went to Iceland, and if I hadn't have checked what the precipitation was going to be, I wouldn't have known to bring head to toe rain gear. And if I hadn't done that, I would have lost days off my itinerary where I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere because it was raining from morning to night. So that's another important factor when you're going to a new destination. You want to make sure you're checking that the temperature is going to be something that you can travel comfortably with, because lots of people with spinal cord injuries have an inability to sweat below their level of lesion and cool themselves off. And obviously, the rain is a really huge factor. You are spending a substantial amount of money taking a trip. You don't want to lose days off of what your plans were because it's raining all the time. Next, and then skip again. So for people who can overheat easily, people with quadriplegia who can't sweat over most of their body, simplest way, or one of the simplest ways to cool yourself off, is just a simple compact spray bottle, so that you're putting water on your body, which then is evaporating and cooling you off. But you can also get special products that can help you with this as well. Next. This is a company called Mist-E-Mate, and they make products that will spray a fine mist on you. So this product, you pump it up at the bottom to create pressure in the vessel. You push the button at the top, and it'll release a fine mist onto you. Next.
Question about that. Do you know if it's refillable, or do you have to purchase a new bottle each
No,
time?
it's absolutely refillable. Yeah, yeah. This is a larger one. You can actually hang this on your chair, put it in your bag, and it has a long cord or a long tube, and actually has a clip on the end, and you could clip it onto your headrest, your clothing, part of your wheelchair, and have it continuously spraying a mild mist on you if you're going to a very hot destination and you have challenges with the heat. Next. You see these often. Nowadays they look like a set of earphones for playing music, but it's in fact a fan. It fits around. It basically goes around your neck and blows air on the sides of your neck and up the sides of your neck from all those slots, and is an effective way to cool yourself off. And they're easily rechargeable. Next. They come in all different shapes and sizes. There's a lot of handheld fans. This is uh, what's called a rain deck. It's a leg blanket, but specifically for the rain. Next. They make them in a short version, but they also make them in a full length version. So if you're going somewhere and you know that there's a high probability that there's could be a lot of rain, getting something that's a leg blanket specifically for the rain could be a good idea. It's more convenient than having to put rain pants on. And quite frankly, rain pants aren't going to stop water from going between your legs and still soaking your cushion. So something like this, which covers your lap and goes down the sides, the outer sides of your cushion, is far more effective at keeping the water off both you and your cushion. Next. They also have insulated versions which act as basically a leg blanket to keep yourself warm. So if you're going to a cold climate, you can have an insulated leg blanket as well. And this is made by a European company, or all three of these products are made by a company called Kinetic Balance, which is from Europe and can be ordered online. Next. It's a little small, but TripAdvisor is a website that I use just as a tool to help me find hotels when I'm traveling. I don't actually use it to do the booking. So when I go down to amenities, you'll see a menu that it displays 4 amenities. You click the underneath where it says show more, and then next screen. This is a little bit better view. You see the amenities tab there. And then when you click show all, it's going to give you a menu of all the amenities. Sorry, go forward 2 slides, please. One more. It'll show you all these amenities. You simply type in W. It'll bring up wheelchair access. You click the box, apply, and then all the hotels that you look for will be ones that it lists as wheelchair accessible. And then, Jaspreet, if you could go back 2 slides, please. So the other great thing about this TripAdvisor is once you've got all those wheelchair accessible hotels listed, you can pick a location, a distance from that location. So it can help you find hotels that are close to where you're going to be or close to most of the sites that you want to visit so that you can minimize your transportation needs. If you could go forward 1 slide. There's a view map option, so you could visually see where all the hotels are located that are wheelchair accessible and what their cost is, and then look at that versus where the sites are that you want to see so that you can place yourself closer to the things that you want to see, preferably without having to book taxis or use public transportation. So this is a great tool just for plotting, finding hotels, and plotting where you want to be located to minimize the travel time that you're going to have every day to start seeing the sites that you want to see in that particular city. The one other thing I'll mention, though, is it is not 100% reliable in terms of wheelchair accessibility, so you always need to call the hotel and make sure that it is, in fact, wheelchair accessible. I went to Vietnam one time with a list of almost 30 hotels that TripAdvisor said were wheelchair accessible. I actually took a day to visit them all, and all but I think 3 of them were not wheelchair accessible. So especially when you're dealing with foreign countries or countries where their first language isn't English, there can be problems with how they register themselves on TripAdvisor, and often the accessibility information is not accurate, or they might have a different interpretation of what wheelchair accessibility is. So you always need to verify that your hotel is going to be accessible, and you can't always trust the accessibility information on sites like Expedia and TripAdvisor. So even though they are helpful tools, you always need to verify. Next slide. Next. Back one. Accessible Travel Club is a travel group. They have a website. They also have a Facebook page. It is an excellent source of travel information, and most of the people that post or answer questions on it are all members of the disability community. So if there's something you want to know about a destination you're interested in going, you just need to post it on their discussion board, and wheelchair users from all over the world who have been there will start replying to your inquiry and providing you with the information that you need. So it's a great travel resource where you're getting information from other wheelchair users or other people with disabilities that have already been to that destination before. Next. If you are able to drive a car and you're able to take apart your wheelchair and put it into a regular car, and just use basic hand controls, then in North America and many European countries, you can go to mainstream car rental agencies and rent a car with hand controls. This can't be done spur of the moment. It does need to be booked in advance, but a lot of these companies and others have cars that they can have hand controls installed in for you in countries all over the world. So that can be an option to take road trips and drive yourself in other countries, not just in Canada and the United States. And usually they do not charge any additional fee for this. You get to rent the car at the same rate anyone would rent it. They pay the cost of getting the hand controls put into the vehicles if they don't already have some with hand controls installed. Yeah. Next. I have on occasion had a company not remember to put the spinner knob on the steering wheel. So ever since that happened to me, I basically bought my own online. It could be put on the steering wheel in a couple seconds with a simple Allen key. But it's just a good backup. If you absolutely need a spinner knob on the steering wheel to be able to drive, always good to have one as backup. Worst case scenario for me was I flew to Calgary. On arrival, my car didn't have a spinner knob. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I need to get to Banff to check into my hotel. So the car rental company actually had to pay $250 for a taxi to get me to Banff. Then the next day, they had to get the spinner knob put on the car and then drive it to Banff out to me to deliver it. So these are the types of things that can happen if you're not prepared for unfortunate circumstances. Next. Oh, does anyone remind me what's the name for this? When your cruise ship doesn't dock with the port, but you need to go by boat.
Tender?
Yes, the tender. Thank you very much. So when you're taking cruises, you might not have the ability to use the tender to get off the boat at one of the stops. So that's an important thing to know when you're selecting a cruise is if they're going to be using any tenders, because obviously in this case, you can see the stairs. This would be an obvious impediment potentially to a wheelchair user to be able to get on the tender in order to get ashore. And if you're paying for a cruise, it would be a shame to not be able to visit one or more of the cities that the cruise ship is stopping at. So something to always research with your cruise line is what, if any, tenders they might be using. Next. Jaspreet, you can advance the. Thanks. This is a Via Rail train. This is one of the new trains that they purchased. They're far more wheelchair accessible than the old ones. They have a lot more room. It has a height adjustable table where the space is for wheelchair users if you're remaining in your chair. Next slide. And these are the new bathrooms. They are significantly larger than the wheelchair accessible bathrooms on the old planes, much more wheelchair friendly. It's more like the bathroom that you would find on a modern European train. So this is what's going to be the new standard. By the end of this calendar year, every single Via train will be replaced with new ones, and this will be the new standard. The only thing is, they have this in the economy cars now, so you'll no longer be privileged to a free meal in business class, which was the only car that used to be able to take wheelchair users. That's the upside and the downside. Next. That's just one more picture of the bathrooms. They are quite large. In terms of their width, they take up two-thirds of the width of the train, as opposed to the other ones, which were only about a third of the width of the train, far narrower and far more challenging for a wheelchair user to get in and out of. Next. This is an example of the type of aisle chairs that are usually on board the planes. They have them folded up and take them out for you to be able to try and access the washroom. Next. Um, Usually most people aren't allowed to bring any kind of tools on board a plane. However, CATSA, which is the Canadian Air Travel Security Agency, says right on their website that wheelchair users are allowed to bring tools if they're related to the assembly and disassembly of your mobility device. So this is a privilege that we have that most people don't. Next slide. It indicates here too that there's a limit on them in terms of they can't be longer than 2.4 inches long. That's measured from the tip of the tool to the nearest joint. So you can bring a set of Allen keys as long as one of them isn't longer than 2.4 inches. Sometimes they will pull one of these things out of your carry-on when you're going through security, and they often just need a quick reminder that this is for the assembly and disassembly of your mobility device, and therefore is to be allowed. Whenever I brought this to their attention, they acknowledge that I was in fact correct, and then they allow me to bring this on board and keep it in my carry-on as opposed to confiscating it. Next. Canadian registration for Canadians abroad. This is on the Government of Canada website. Whenever you're traveling out of the country, it's good to register on this website. It lets them know where you're going to be and when, and provides them with an emergency contact number. So if there is a pandemic, a natural disaster, a tsunami, civil unrest, they can get in touch with you and let you know while you're away on your trip that this has occurred. And they often have volunteers like expats on the ground all over the world that can assist you in some sort of emergency situation. It takes about 5 minutes to fill this out online, and it's just a good precaution to take. And it's something that I've been doing for years anytime I'm leaving the country. Next. Packing list. We need to bring more than what the average traveler brings with them. We've got potentially more prescription drugs, medical supplies, etc. And you don't want to forget anything. So I'm a big proponent of always having a packing list. There's lots of generic packing lists online. They make for a good starting point, but it's always good to, open up a Word document or a spreadsheet, build one starting with an existing one like this, and add all the things that you know that you're going to need on a trip, so you can make absolutely certain that you don't forget anything critical that you need. Next.
Leander, sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so it's 4:03. If everyone's able to stay on a bit longer, Leander's got more that he can share, but if anyone has to pop off, I just want to make sure nobody had any questions at this point for, I guess, Leander and I right now. Paul and Jackie had to leave.
I might have to pop off. So I was gonna say, Leander, do you have the pictures, and could you continue from this point?
Yeah, I've got the pictures, yeah, in the same
Thank you.
order.
I am sorry.
I don't see any questions in the chat box or anything, so Leander.
So you want me to take over and I'll share from. Second. So we were at. So I'm just finding where we are. Here we go. Okay.
Oh, I'll make you co-host, Leander.
And sharing is not turned on. Okay, now I think it is. So I'm just going to find the share. There it is. And can you see this now?
Yeah.
It's always a good idea to bring tools. A wheelchair is a mechanical device, and at any time something can break down. One of the most useful things to bring with you is Allen keys for your wheelchair. Also, your wheelchair could be imperial, and you could be traveling to a country that's metric, and therefore you might not be able to find imperial Allen keys in the country that you're traveling to. So that's another reason why it's always handy to bring the stuff that you have. You could also just bring the Allen keys individually that you need. This way, they're even lighter, more compact, and takes up less room in your luggage. Extra inner tubes is usually a must for a wheelchair user. Again, you should take them out of the box, they take up less space, but it's so easy to get a flat tire. And even if you've got, Schwalbe Marathon Plus tires on your manual wheelchair, which are supposed to be relatively puncture proof, I've seen people who've gotten them flat before, and it's never a guarantee. If you want to completely eliminate the need for potentially getting a flat on a trip, then solid tires might be a better option for you, but those are going to be a little bit heavier for you to propel your wheelchair. If you're going somewhere really far for a really long time, you might even want to bring extra tires because it's possible for the sidewall of a tire to rip if it explodes. And there are folding tires which can fit compactly in your luggage. A patch kit is also very handy. These are very small. They take up next to no room, very light, and enable you to patch a flat if you were to get a flat tire. Tire levers, again, is an essential tool if you needed to change a flat on your chair. This is what enables you to take the tire off of the rim of your wheelchair. And then a compact pump. Something like this, you could easily have strapped on the tube underneath your chair that your wheelchair is attached to. Can easily be zip tied on, so it's always available. It's not really considered a tool, and in all my years of travel, I've never had airline security ask me to remove it or put it in my luggage or try and confiscate it. I've always been able to travel with this on my chair at all times. So it's always available to me if something happened. If I'm going somewhere for a long period of time, I might even bring bearings for my casters, as if water gets into these, it could cause problems for you, but it's only relevant if you've got the skill set to know how to change them yourself. But bike stores can probably do that for you as well. Again, if I'm going away for a really long period of time, I'll even bring an axle. A lot of people don't know that the little push button that you use to release your axle and remove your wheels, it actually screws on, and I've had them unscrew and fall off. At that point, the insides of the quick release axle have fallen out, and the little ball bearings can get lost. And then without an axle, you obviously can't get your wheel back on. If you've disassembled it to get into a car or a taxi, and then it happens to fall apart on you. So if I'm traveling somewhere really far away, I'll usually bring one extra axle just as a precaution in case something happens. And I have had occasions where I've needed to use it. Cell phone SIM cards. So these days you can approach your cell phone carrier and get a travel package so that you can use your phone abroad for phone calls or data. But generally, I find that it's far less expensive to use a local SIM card. So you can remove your SIM card, get one locally, and put it in there. But another thing you can do is most modern phones have an eSIM, which is an electronic SIM, rather than an actual physical SIM card. If you have your provider in Canada use the eSIM, then the slot is available for a foreign SIM card. And this way you can both receive calls from Canada in case of an emergency, as well as have a foreign SIM card and be able to use that for data if you're looking anything up or getting directions or using Google Maps. So this is very handy. So again, I was in Cambodia. I paid like $10 for data for an entire month, significantly cheaper than I would have paid if I was getting a package through Bell or Rogers or whoever my Canadian carrier was. So that's just another helpful tip. Google Maps is a pretty essential tool these days, very helpful when you're traveling. And what a lot of people don't know is you don't need data to use Google Maps. You can essentially, this is usually called offline maps, and you can download offline maps to use. So then once the map is in your phone and your phone's receiving GPS signals, you don't need any data to navigate somewhere. So if you don't want to get a foreign SIM card or get a travel pack, you can just download a map from your hotel using Wi-Fi and then navigate around your destination without using any data whatsoever. Same thing with Google Maps. Having the Google Map app on your phone is very helpful, especially when you're traveling to a country that speaks another language. Again, you can, if you don't want to use data, you can go up here, click that, and you can download a language onto the phone so that you don't need data to translate. So this is a great little tip that can help you out as well. And here, would you just scroll through, the languages alphabetically till you get to the one that you need, and you click the download button, and it's as easy as that. Google Translate also uses the camera of the phone and can translate signs, a menu at a restaurant from another language like Spanish, for instance, into English, and you can read it live using the camera of your phone. So it's, again, a very useful tool when you're traveling to destinations where people speak a different language. Here we have a gentleman doing a wheelie off of a curb. I found that advanced wheelchair skills has given me a lot more freedom and a lot more access when I'm traveling to other countries. A lot of the places I've been, like the Middle East or Africa, don't have accessibility standards like we have here in Canada. So acquiring and practicing wheelchair skills can help you get around more easily and get to see more things that otherwise would be challenging to get to. Some rehab centers allow patients to come back as an outpatient, specifically to learn wheelchair skills. Yeah. Again, not everyone has the capacity to do this. It wouldn't work in a power chair, but this is just another example of if you acquire advanced wheelchair skills that can permit you to get around. In this instance, the gentleman's using a power chair. I mean, using an escalator, whereas there might not have been an elevator for him to use. And then stairs are also possible in a wheelchair, depending on your ability, of course, up or down. And I've used these in different countries around the world. But also just knowing how to instruct other people to assist you up and down a flight of stairs, whether these might be friends or family members you're traveling with, or a guide or driver if you have one. It's useful if you know how to instruct people on the best and safest way to help you traverse a set of stairs. There's techniques for this, and often an occupational therapist who's familiar with your specific disability can tell you and potentially demonstrate what the best techniques are for this type of thing. The best travel accessory that I've ever used is something called a freewheel. It lifts the small front wheels off your chair, turns you into a three-wheeler, and enables you to traverse much more challenging terrain than what you could otherwise. So it's handy if you're doing something as simple as going on a camping trip, if you're going to be accessing trails. It's great for areas where there are cobblestones, and some of the worst cobblestones I've run into weren't even in Europe, but old Montreal. So this is an excellent type of accessory that helps give you more access. Also great if you're cottaging. Some of these devices have the ability to be hung on the back of your chair so that they're out of the way when you're not using them. So it's still easy to transport it and take it off and put it on whenever you need it. This is one called the front wheel, made by RGK. And this is another one called the track wheel, made by Reasense. So there's many companies that sell these different products. In this case, this one doesn't attach to the footrest. It attaches to the down tubes of your chair. So this one's actually compatible with folding wheelchairs or a wheelchair, regardless of what type of footrest that you had. And then off-road wheels for your rear wheels can also help you access rough terrain. Again, if you're doing trails, you're going camping, you're going somewhere where you're going to be exploring ancient ruins, or maybe on a beach, using rear wheels that are off-road wheels like this in combination with one of those front wheel devices can give you a lot more access to explore. These days, power assist devices are really helpful. Most of them come with batteries that are allow them to be transported on board aircraft. This one is the Chill Care Companion. It is an ADP approved power assist device, that can be clamped on and removed from your wheelchair within a few seconds. So this can be a great tool to travel with if you know that you're going to be covering a lot of ground and it'd be too challenging or too fatiguing for you to just traverse those distances, propelling your manual wheelchair yourself a day after day. There's all different types of models and sizes that these come in, made by different companies, like Permobile. This one is the Batec. This one's made by a company called Reascents. They will often come in a variety of sizes, depending on how aggressive the terrain is that you want to be exploring. But most of these products are not covered by ADP, and they can be, up to $9,000. The least expensive ones can be probably about $2,500, $3,000. But the Reascents one is the one that's the only one that is currently ADP approved for people who live in Ontario. There's rear wheel devices that can help you again. This is called the Smart Drive, which is a very common power assist product that people use. But there are other companies that make similar devices as well. Yeah, this is another example of another one made by Sunrise. When you're traveling to other countries, not all hotels will have a shower bench or shower chair for you to use. So you may have to bring one with you. There are shower chairs and shower benches which are foldable to make them easier to transport on a trip. This is just one example of one. Often, if you don't want to have to travel with a shower chair, usually going to developing countries, there's no shortage of plastic patio chairs. So often, different destinations, I've asked my hotel to bring me one of these, and I've essentially used this as my shower chair. They're also in developing countries. Plastic stools are also common everywhere, and another possible substitute if you don't need something with a backrest. So, but if you need something that's got armrests on it or back, you may have to bring your own folding device. You can, if traveling is a big part of your lifestyle, you can actually make choices about the prescription of your wheelchair, which make it better suited to travel. Generally, accessing washrooms in developing countries ultimately comes down to how narrow your wheelchair is versus the bathroom door that you need to get through. One way to make your wheelchair narrower is to eliminate the camber in the wheels. That's not something that everyone would want to do, but if travel is a big part of your lifestyle, eliminating the camber, making your chair narrower is one of the ways that you can that can give you access to more washrooms in countries where they don't have robust accessibility standards like we do here in Canada. Hoses instead of toilet paper is something that when you do a lot of travel, you start running into. I've even seen these at the Vatican, in Italy. So that's something that you sometimes may run into. Water is cheaper than toilet paper in a lot of countries where products like that can be more expensive and people don't have a lot of money. I've also run into these types of washrooms, which would also present a really difficult challenge for someone to use. Traveling aboard a plane, most people will often take the cushion off their wheelchair and use that to sit on. As Julie noted earlier, depending on how thick your cushion is, you might end up feeling like a kid on a booster seat with your feet dangling. So depending on what your skin is like, there are smaller cushions or low profile cushions that you can purchase. But you talk to your occupational therapist and make sure that something's suitable for your skin so you don't have any skin issues. Myself, I get like an inflatable kind of thermal rest. This is something that you just blow up with a mouth valve. It has foam in it and air. It folds up to be very, very compact into my carry-on luggage. And this is generally what I'll use to sit on long flights. And I know that this particular product doesn't cause me any skin problems just from years of experience and knowing what my tolerance is. And then it folds up compactly to something the size of a beer can in a little nylon bag. So its portability is another a big advantage, and why I choose to use a product like that for long flights or even long road trips for that matter. Anytime I might be out of my chair for hours and hours. Yeah. Um, because wheelchair users have less movement and activity in your legs, if you're taking a very long flight overseas, uh, pressure stockings or compression socks are something that's a really wise investment. It's going to help eliminate the discomfort and swelling in your legs and feet on a long flight. If you're flying over the Pacific, it's not unusual to have flights as long as 16 hours from Canada to your destination, depending on where you're flying from. And the last thing you want to do is get a blood clot, which could potentially be fatal. So compression socks are an important thing to bring with you on long flights where you're not going to be active and moving around. Um, although it's not often advertised, when you're going to see museums and different sites when you're traveling, often if you go right up to the front of the line and make the individual at the doors aware that you're a wheelchair user, they'll often just tell you to go ahead in. So it's not always, it's rarely necessary for you to wait in a long line, in the baking sun or perhaps in the rain or in cold weather. So whenever you see a long line to a museum, go ahead up to the front doors, and often they're going to let you right in. So often you can get around to sites significantly faster than the average person, and they'll let you bring your spouse or partner with you at the same time. This can cut a lot of wasted time off of your day, where sometimes in very popular cities like France or um, France or Rome, you could be in a lineup for an hour otherwise. So don't be afraid to go up to the front and ask if you can get straight in. There was mention of insurance earlier. A lot of insurance policies will only cover you if it's been 6 months since the last time you had a particular health problem. If you choose to travel before that 6 months has taken place and you get a reoccurrence on vacation, your travel insurance might not cover you. And that could result in you paying a significant amount of money for your health care in another country until such time as you're able to come home. I've used in the past the Manulife Premium Protection Plan. It cuts down that wait time to only 3 months after the last time you've had a medical issue. And it's not the only plan that offers that option. So when you're looking into insurance, if you've had a health problem recently and you really want to go on a vacation, but it's been 5 months since you had a health problem which could reoccur, you want to make sure that you find a policy that's going to cover you, and usually that minimum amount of time is 3 months since the last reoccurrence. So traveler diarrhea is something that happens frequently. Uh, uh, Drinking water, drinking foods you're not accustomed to, drinking street food in different countries. I always make sure I have some kind of product recommended by my pharmacy that will deal with traveler's diarrhea. Typically, I've used Cipro, and I take one pill, and the problem is remedied. If you don't have bowel control, diarrhea is just a real vacation killer, way more than would be for the average person. So having something like this that can quickly nip it in the bud and allow you to continue exploring without the fear of having an accident on your vacation is an important precaution to take. You always want to bring more supplies than you need. We heard Paul talking earlier that he almost ran out of supplies on one of his trips. You don't always have access to washrooms when you need to. You're going on excursions, so you may have to use washrooms when they're available and not necessarily every 6 hours or 5 hours or whenever you normally would catheterize. So it's important to bring more supplies than what you would normally need in order to anticipate that. or in case there were your flight was delayed coming back, you've got a few extra days supplies to cover you in the event of something like that happening. And then cameras. There are certain types of cameras which are more conducive to travel for people with mobility impairments. Um, if you're a wheelchair user, you might not be able to get as close to the subject matter you want to take a picture of. So having a camera that has more zoom than normal, like a super zoom camera, enables you to get a picture closer into your subject matter if there's barriers or obstacles that would prevent you from getting as close as a tourist who can walk. So a camera with a lot of zoom is always a plus, and one with a screen that can pivot in all different directions. You could be in your car and stick the camera out the sunroof and still have a line of sight by using this screen that allows you to take the photo without having to get in and out of your car repeatedly. So having a screen that can allow you to get that line of sight for different shots when you can't necessarily get your body into the position that you want for the photo is a big advantage. So looking for a camera that has a swivelable screen and a lot of zoom is something that can be very useful for wheelchair users when they're traveling. This is an Eagle Lift. So some airlines are equipped with this device. So for people who really don't have the ability to transfer independently, there are airlines and airports that have these Eagle Lifts available to them. It actually fits up the aisle of the plane and can then plunk you down on whichever seat was designated to you. So these types of devices can sometimes be available to help you get on and off the plane, even if you're not able to transfer independently. This is, again, one of those track wheel devices. And again, this is one that clamps on to the down tubes of your wheelchair. So this would work on a rigid wheelchair. It would also work on a folding wheelchair. And if a lot of people use these freewheel devices, if you're looking for some kind of bag to carry it in, a small snowshoe bag is actually what I found, which is the best fitting bag to put one of these freewheel devices in. If you're going to be going out at night, little LED bicycle lights that are rubber or silicone can easily be stretched around the down tubes of your wheelchair or near your foot plate and illuminate in front of you, especially the ground, so that you can keep your eye out for any potholes if you're exploring a city at night and you're in an area that's not well lit. AirTag. It's possible for wheelchairs to go missing. I've had a couple occasions where an airline didn't get the chair on board the plane with me, or they had trouble locating my chair. These days, they're very affordable and common. Getting an AirTag and placing it somewhere in your wheelchair so that you always know where the wheelchair is, and you can actually potentially assist the airline in locating your chair if they don't know where it is probably a worthwhile investment, given that your mobility device probably costs from $5,000 to $10,000 or maybe even more. Apple isn't the only company that makes these. Samsung and other companies make them as well. So regardless of what kind of phone you use, having a smart tag on your mobility device is probably just a wise precaution to take. And then if you're going to a winter destination, going to be on the snow, Wheel Blades makes these originally for large strollers or for three-wheel jogging strollers, and these happen to be compatible with those front wheel devices that I was showing earlier. So if you're going to be going somewhere you want better access on the snow, you may want to invest in a Wheel Blade. These ones are a larger size called Wheel Blade XL. They also have wheel blades that attach to your casters, which are smaller, if you don't have a front wheel device but still want to have better access on a surface. And then another tool to beat the heat on hot destinations is a cooling scarf. You essentially soak this in water, or you could just pour a bottle of water on it. It will swell up. You could tie it around your neck or even tie it around your head like a bandana, and it'll help keep you cool for an extended period of time. Once your body warms it up, You just essentially soak it in water again to cool it off. Yeah. And then if you're going to a country where the rental companies don't have hand controls, there are portable hand controls that you can purchase online. And then you could attach them to the pedals in your rental car. And this could enable you to still rent a car and drive a car in a country where the rental agencies don't have the means to put hand controls on a vehicle for you. And then, as I mentioned, traveling with off-road wheels can help you if you're going to a destination with challenging terrain. And then you could go into any bike store and purchase a wheel bag that you can use to store to put the wheels in specifically for travel. So that you've got this extra set of wheels for you that you can use depending on what particular sites you're seeing that day. And then I think we're almost at the end here. If you're looking for a separate bag to carry your catheters, in this case, male catheters, the closest fitting type of bags I've found, which are readily available online, are actually camera tripod bags. They come in a variety of lengths, so it's easy to find one that matches the length of the catheters that you use if you want a standalone bag to carry those products. And they're also, you can have more structured ones that have a strap and a zipper and are padded on the outside. So this could be handy again if you want a specific piece of luggage just to put your catheters or continence supplies in. Extension tubes allow you to extend the distance of your catheter. So if you don't want to actually transfer onto a toilet, you would basically plug this in to the funnel end of your catheter. And it would allow you to extend the other end all the way into the toilet without your having to transfer. So some of the catheter companies make these extension tubes. They're a handy device if you don't want to have to do a transfer in order to empty your bladder. There's also closed systems that you can use that are a catheter and a bag. You'd easily also use this on a plane under a blanket, empty your bladder into the bag, put it into, I guess, the airline barf bag, and you could pass it off to an airline steward without their even knowing what was in the bag. And this way you could still empty your bladder on the plane. And if you're going somewhere and you're planning on, swimming with the dolphins or something to that effect, webbed gloves, which are originally intended to be a training tool for competitive swimmers, are a great way to enable you to swim better if you're not able to use your legs to propel you in the water. So again, if you're going to a warmer destination and going to be in a pool or in the ocean, these types of webbed gloves are something that you might want to try out. And then again, if you're on board a plane and you are going to catheterize under a blanket, the simplest solution is just have an empty PET bottle, and you could empty it into there. Again, throw it into the barf bag aboard the plane, and then just have a stewardess or someone dispose of it in the garbage, and they wouldn't even know what the contents of the container are. If you can't find an extension tube for a catheter, but you like the idea of using one, generic tubing like this can be just bought at a regular hardware store like Home Depot. You can buy it by the length and cut it to the size that you want and use this essentially as your extension tube if ever you want to empty your bladder in a toilet but don't want to have to do the transfer. And then this is one last example of a folding shower chair that you can take on a trip. You can see this one is extremely compact with the legs and the back that fold down. So there's many products like this available. Your vendor, even if your vendor doesn't sell them, some products like this are also available through non-medical vendors on websites like Amazon. This is just an example of some of the travel adapters I was talking about. Or you can get a multi-adapter like this, which is suitable for many countries. And that essentially ends my presentation.
Wow. That's all I have to say. Like amazing, amazing information. Does anyone have any questions for Leander? I know we're getting on 4:35, but again, I will send this out, so you will get the link to the presentation. So I know there's been a lot of information. I know Leander's talked about a lot of different companies. So you will have access to this link to go back and rewatch it and get some of that information. But if anyone has any questions for Leander now, please feel free to go ahead and just ask.
Also, if anyone had questions about a specific destination that they're considering, wondering how accessible it is, you can feel free to ask. And if I happen to have been there, I might be able to respond.
Yeah, I did. How about Japan? Tokyo,
I have not
Osaka?
been to Japan, but one of Julie and I's colleagues has just came back from a trip to Japan last year. She said it was very accessible, and Japan used to have a reputation for being a very expensive destination. But I've talked to both that colleague and someone else recently who told me that these days their currency is not as strong and it's not as expensive to visit there as people might think. It's a developed country and they do have good accessibility standards. Our colleague actually had no negative feedback that she shared with me and said it was an excellent trip and she would happily go back and actually might be going back to Japan again on her next trip because she had such a good time. She was a manual wheelchair user, and I believe that was her first time traveling to any Asian destination. So Japan is definitely a viable destination for a wheelchair user. Absolutely.
Question.
Thank you.
Sorry, Leah. Question in the chat box. I use a commode to shower and for my bowel routine. So my challenge is to find one to rent at my destinations. Any recommendations?
That's where I would use that Access Travel Club. I would either go onto their website or just onto the Facebook group. I would join and put that question out to the larger group. And I'm sure that you'll get people who've actually been to those countries who have already sourced those suppliers who can give you that information. There's so many countries in the world, no one's got all the information, but if you're able to leverage a large group like that with thousands of people with disabilities on that site, all happy to share the information from their own travel experiences. That is one excellent way to get the information that you need. If you're just searching online by yourself, trying to Google those resources in another country and you're not able to find them.
The nice thing about social media these days, right? There's so many sites that you can go to or groups that you can join to get information.
Yeah. And there's Julie has a list of resources and some of her colleagues have compiled, and a lot of those will be there'll be a lot of travel resources there that she'll be able to share with the people who were on this call today. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, I'm not sure where everybody is from, but we do, like I said, I'm a peer support coordinator. So we do, in your area, if you're connected with SCIO or if you want to be to talk to a peer who's done some traveling, you want to fill out a self-referral form online, you can get connected with a peer mentor and ask them some of these questions. Lots of people might have information like Leander, myself, like I said, I've been a few places, not quite the places Leander's been, but we do have that available if you're interested. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and thank you so much, Leander. Like I said, all this information will be in the email that you'll get within the next couple of weeks. I know Jackie and Paul had to pop off, but I want to thank them as well for their information and just Jaspreet for her help. Our next peer connection is on April 7th. It's on assistive devices, so that should be a good one too. If you want to check it out, just go to our website and look up the upcoming events, and you can register from there. So thank you all. I hope you enjoy your evening, and we'll see you next time.